Chris Phillips is live now into the weekend with Flashback Friday. Flashback Friday on the UK's #1 station, secondcityradio.net, and on the Second City Radio app for Android and iOS.
Now we've got a lady who's just brilliant. She's just beautiful, gorgeous, and all part of my childhood growing up, of course. She's a unique superstar, and I pinch myself now as we say good evening to the wonderful Cheryl Baker.
Good evening.
Was that a nice introduction?
It was lovely, but did you say you were throwing up when you were listening to it?
Absolutely not. No, we've been talking about snow earlier on in the programme and how bad it is, and how fantastic, because we've been saying on the radio that you were on the TV around about half an hour ago on Channel 5, and how nice of you to pack up your camping equipment. How you did that in half an hour, I'll never know.
Anything for you, Chris.
Well, listen, we've got lots to talk about tonight, and, you know, can I just say thank you very much indeed for agreeing to come on. I know you're a very, very busy lady. And what I want to talk about to start with, of course, is why you decided to get into the world of showbiz when you got into it. What made you decide to go down the route you went down?
It was something I always wanted to do, but I didn't think it would actually happen to me. So when I left school at 16, I got a proper job. I was a secretary. I did shorthand and typing, but all the time, for the 5 years till I was a professional singer, I just dreamt of joining the band. And it was when I was 21, and I saw an advert in, I don't know, the NME or the Melody Maker, saying girl singer required for harmony band. That was the key word for me, harmony. Must have experience, and I thought, oh, this is my peachy job. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I just bit the bullet and ran and auditioned, and I got the job. And that was the first band I ever joined, which was, well, they were called Mother's Pride at the time, and then shortly after, they changed their name to Coco.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that, because obviously there is bits about you being in this band called Coco. How long did you stay in Coco? Did you think it was working, or did you want to quickly move on and into something else that was going to, you know, kind of catapult you a little bit further?
No, I mean, I did the Eurovision with Coco, and we had a top 20 hit, and we worked all the time, so I actually thought that was going to be the you know, penultimate for me. I thought, you're not going to get any better than this. So I was with them for 6 years. I left in 1980, towards the end of 1980, so I was with them from 75, and I just... it was getting a bit, the music business was getting a bit too much business, not enough music for me, so I thought, I'm getting out.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, if you don't mind me asking? What do you mean it was not about music? What do you mean?
The business side of things was taking priority. I loved singing, I loved being on stage and performing, and it was about making money and the logistics of everything. It was just getting a bit ugly, and we were falling out within the group. And I just thought, no, I've had enough. I can do without this. I'll go back to doing what I trained to do at school. I'll be a secretary, but I was like a jack of all trades, working in a recording studio. So when I left them, that's the job I went to do. And while I was in the recording studio, if people came in, like B.A. Robertson came in, he needed some backing vocals on some tracks, so I did them for him. If anyone came in and wanted backing vocals, I'd do them, and I'd answer the phones, and I'd type their letters, you know. So, and that was the moment that Nicola Martin, who put Bucks Fizz together, she came in. She was one of the clients of the studio, and she saw me, and she knew I'd done Eurovision. She knew I'd been in Bucks Fizz. Yeah. And she asked why I was there, and I said, I've left Coco, and that's how come I was asked to be involved with Bucks Fizz. So it was purely by chance, really.
Well, you know, I have to say, for everybody, you know, pinging away now, talking to me, you are Miss UK in my eyes and other people's eyes. Bucks Fizz, to everybody in this country, we've kind of, it's in our hearts. It's there. It's always going to be there. That performance and the ripping of the skirts. The way that you came across, and of course it was a successful hit. Of course, we've just played that on the radio. What was it like around that time, knowing that, because you must have thought we're onto something quite big here. You know, as soon as you started to get the training for the Eurovision, you went and did that, you won that. How did all that feel? You must have felt like $1 million.
Yeah, I did. It was my childhood dream. And when I did it with Coco in 1978 and became 11th, which was the worst the UK had ever done at that time, you know, I felt like I'd let the Queen down. And then 3 years later, to be able to do it again with Bucks Fizz, and this time to win, I was absolutely in seventh heaven. I really was. It was my dream. It was like every little girl who wants to be a princess or whatever. That was my princess dream, winning the Eurovision Song Contest. So it was magical. And I remember standing on a platform with the rest of the guys, the rest of Fizz, and we had to keep turning around, like in a circle, keep turning around with our backs to each other, so that the photographers could get photos of us all. And there was a sea of photographers. This was just after winning Eurovision. And I remember thinking at that time, my life has just changed. And it absolutely did. Absolutely did. That 3 minutes on stage at Eurovision and the Velcro changed my life forever.
We have to say, I mean, I've just got, let me just kind of ping this question because it's kind of, I wonder if people tried to pull a skirt off in the street to copy. Did anybody ever kind of come up to you after that thinking that, you know, it was like the person on the stage, people come up to you maybe trying to grab hold of your skirt? That would be wrong, of course, but we know it happens.
They still do it.
No, leave her alone.
Everywhere I go, honestly, everywhere I go.
Leave her alone, you mucky people.
On, they go, oh, what you got trousers on for? We were going to rip your skirt off. It's the thing that, you know, that made that song, wasn't it? I honestly believe that without the skirt ripping off, we wouldn't have won.
Well, you've done.
We'd have been talking to some German bird now.
Well, no, not at all. Not at all. See,
we only lost by 4. I mean, we only won by 4 points.
See, the thing is, it's kind of, you're kind of like, and I'm going to say this word, and I mean this, royalty. In this country, there's certain people that you take to heart, and you're one of them. And people that are tuning in tonight that kind of don't know about the Bucks Fizz era, as we go through to, other things that will come up, they will definitely know about. So when you came away from Eurovision, obviously you're on a high, loads of things going on. You had hits with, of course, The Land of Make Believe, which is my favourite. That's my. I like that track, and My Camera Never Lies. All great tracks. Did you think, well, this is it, Bucks Fizz for life? I mean, I still know that you're involved in the group, the Fizz, but we'll talk about that later. But did you think that's it now? I'm just gonna do this now for the rest of my naturals, or did you want to go off and explore other things because you'd achieved that?
No, I didn't want to. Certainly didn't want to leave. I was loving it. We were having the time of our lives. It was wonderful. I didn't really give it enough thought, to be honest. I did reckon that it would probably be, you know, 3 or 4 years at the most, and then we'd have to move on and do something else. But if you'd have said to me 30 odd years ago, do you reckon I'd still be ripping your skirts off 30 years time? I'd have gone, that'd be ridiculous. But I am. So yeah.
Well, see, all you know, we're going to kind of interject Bucks Fizz as we go through, but obviously something else came along. You've done so many things, but another thing for me, of course, where you've gone from singer into presenting, which I've got to say you're fantastic at. I've got to say that because you know the way we're talking now. Is this how you are every day? You just like this all the time? You're just a normal, regular person?
Yeah, I am. I'm just a normal person, and when I talk, I mean, I did try and better my accent because I had a proper core blimey East London accent.
What?
And so I did try and make that a bit softer, because most of my jobs were with the BBC.
Okay.
So I did try and, you know, not to drop my P's and Q's too much. But apart from that, it was how I'm talking to you now is how I always have been. I think that's possibly why when people say they feel they know me, it's possibly why, because I come across as I am naturally. So the first TV thing I did presenting was in 1984, and it was a children's slapstick show called How Dare You?
Yes, and I remember. See, are you reading my scripts? I was just about to. What a fun show that was. You must have enjoyed that thoroughly.
I did. I loved it. You know, when I went for the audition, the producer said to me, I want you to look into the camera and talk to me for 3 minutes. I went, what about? He went, about anything. And I'll tell you what, it's the hardest thing to do when you're told to talk for 3 minutes. I went, I don't know what to talk about. Oh, you went, talk about your home, talk about, you know, what you like doing, talk about when you were a little girl. And to fill 3 minutes with nonsense when you have nothing really, no sort of subject, it's really hard. But anyway, I got the job, and yeah, I did that series. That was the first one, and from there, I wasn't off the telly after that. I went on from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, until 1997. So I wasn't off the telly any year from 1984, until 1998. That I was on telly in one or more series every year for that period of time.
And how does that make you feel, being in demand like that?
Well, I mean, you go along with it, don't you? When it's your life, you just roll with it. And on my passport in the 90s, when it said you had to put down your profession, and I put TV presenter, because that took priority over the singing. And in fact, I left Buxby's in December 93 because I was pregnant.
Yes.
And so from then until 2004, that is what I was. I was just a TV presenter. I wasn't a singer anymore for that interim period.
Well, there's one area that I've got to thank you for, and a lot of the listeners that have been emailing me through the course of the week, apart from Buxby's, because Buxby's is up there, that can't be touched. That's in the gold platitudes of life, can't be touched. But very close to it, and even for me, because I learnt a lot of things, of course. I was always trying to think of things that I could do to be a record breaker, but couldn't come up with nothing. What was it like? First of all, how did you get the gig on Record Breakers, and what about working with the lovely late great Roy Castle? What was that like?
They asked me. They came to me and asked if I would, because as I say, at that time, I'd done How Dare You. How Dare You led on to an evening programme for London Weekend Television, which was called The 6 O'Clock Show. I did that. And then I did a live Saturday morning programme called the Saturday Picture Show with Mark... Oh, come on, mate.
Mark Curry.
Mark Curry. Yeah, I did that. And I think that was then when someone must have seen me from Record Breakers, perhaps, working live with Mark every Saturday morning, and thought Cheryl would be good to work with Roy, because they needed a new co-presenter. And they invited me to come along, and I was absolutely terrified. I turned up at the BBC, went up to the office, the exec producer, director was there, but Roy Castle was such an icon. He was so brilliant. He
Legend.
Was, on the West End stage, he'd been there, he'd been on Broadway, he'd been in films. Of course, he'd been doing Record Breakers at that time for years, plus he'd been the stooge for lots of comedians. He'd done so much.
Yeah.
Can play every instrument, broken loads of records, and I was absolutely in awe of him, and terrified when I walked through the room. But he was a joy. He put me at ease. He never ever made me feel like he knew it all and I knew nothing, which was the case. Of course, he knew so much more than I did, and taught me so much, but without being like a teacher. Do you know what I mean? He was very kind, very generous of his time, and he was the wittiest man. It was a joy to work with him, it really was. I was so lucky.
Well, on screen, it just seemed to me like you connected very well. Very well. He wasn't put on, is what I mean.
No, we had a great relationship, on and off. We had a really good relationship. I loved him. And the funny thing with Roy, he would challenge himself. So that programme was ideal for him at Record Breakers, because he would challenge himself to do things that he didn't think he would be able to do. And that's how he got so many world records.
Yeah.
Because he put himself in a position where it would be really difficult to break this particular record. And maybe he was terrified of it. For instance, he was afraid of heights.
Yeah.
And yet, he did the world's longest wing walk. He did the world's highest rope slide, which I did as well. But he was absolutely terrified. He was, honestly, you should have seen him. When we did that rope slide, he was shaking like a leaf. And yet, when he went down the rope, he was singing, "Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside," because it was Blackpool Leisure Beach. It was from the top of the Blackpool Tower.
Yeah. And
so he would challenge his own fears, and that's how he used to break those records.
But I suppose also you did things yourself to, to kind of fight your fears on things that you did on the show.
Yeah, no, I didn't fight my fears. That wing walking one they asked me to do it, and I said, I don't like sitting in a plane, and I was standing on it.
What?
And I said, all right, I'll do it. They said, just go up and try it. I went up for 15 minutes and landed again, and I said, looked at the producer, he went, well, I went, not on your life. So I didn't do it, and yet Roy did. And Roy, it was a plane that went from Wiltshire, I think it was. It crossed the English Channel and across into France and landed at a little airport over in France. Excuse me. And this was a man who was terrified of heights. And he said, when they were crossing the English Channel, he looked down and he thought, what am I doing? I've put my life in the hands of this bunch of this
Yes.
piece of metal held together with rivets. You know, if anything goes wrong, there's only one prop, it's not two. And, you know, he was afraid, very afraid, but he broke the world record.
So after what was a wonderful, I used to watch it. I'm still not going to give away my age, but I used to watch it regular, and I thought it was just an amazing show. Quality program every week. And like you said, people don't realise, I suppose, what goes on behind the scenes, putting that show together. And of course, sadly, after we lost Roy Castle, the program continued. And if I remember right, did you carry on with the show after?
Another 3 years. I did 8 years with Roy.
Yeah.
And then another 3 years with Chris Akabusi.
Right.
And then after that, there was a new head of children's entertainment at the BBC, and she, like lots of people that take over new jobs, she wanted to sweep with a new broom, and she got rid of everyone.
Oh,
she wanted to get rid of the programme. She hated the programme, but she had to keep it because it had already been recommissioned, so she had to go with it. But then to change it, she got rid of me and Chris, and she brought in, who did she bring in? The other runner, what was his name? The runner, the really fast runner.
Well, obviously the fact that we can't remember means that nobody probably
really
was.
Tight trousers, what was his name? Tight lycra.
Oh,
anyway, brought him in, and another young lad.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. It
No.
I think it ran for another 2 or 3 years.
But do you secretly look at things like that from a distance and hope that it doesn't work because you're not on the gig anymore?
No, of course not.
You're not like that.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, Roy, when he was doing the record breakers, he was when he died, he was in his early 60s.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was in my early 40s.
20s.
In fact, no, I was late 30s. I was late 30s. Yeah, when Roy died. Oh, actually, I was just 40. I was just 40 because I gave birth to my children when I was 40, and that was the last time I saw him when they were born. So I was just 40. So there was 20 odd years between us. But I already felt that I was too old for the programme. I thought it's a children's programme.
No.
It needs a children's presenter. It needs someone maybe in their 20s. That's what I thought. And so when I went, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
But it was.
Well, you built.
I just changed. You have to go with it.
You built the show up. You built the show up. Of course, it's your baby. Record Breakers is always going to be a baby because you built it up. That's kind of how it works. And by the way, this is why I love live chat rooms tonight. I've been told it was Linford Christie.
That's it, Linford Christie. That's it.
Thank you, Chris Ashford, for that. Thank you very much indeed. So, of course, while this was going on, kind of around the same time, whether it was just after Buxby's, you also hosted your own TV programme called Eggs and Baker.
Yeah.
What was all that about? Remind us.
Well, I started when I did the Saturday Picture Show.
Yes.
I was following. I don't know if I did one series of that or more. I can't remember. But I certainly carried on Saturday mornings, and I used to do the cookery items. And there was one called Cheryl's Out to Lunch. Yeah. I can't remember. There was a couple of years that I did their sort of guest cookery things. And one of the directors of the Saturday morning programme, which came from Manchester, she said, I'd like to do a cookery programme with you to go on early on a Saturday morning before the live programme started. And I went, yeah, great. And the head of children's came up with the name Eggs and Baker. So, that started, I think, in 1987 or 8.
1988.
It ran for 5 years.
1988.
Right, and it ran for 5 years, so 5 series. So it was great. And what was great about it was we were the first programme to have Blur, It was their first television performance was by Blur. We had lots of really up-and-coming acts who used to play live on the programme, which at that time, on Top of the Pops and that, everything was just, they used to mime to tracks. And we used to have live performances, which was amazing. Also, we travelled the world to try different foods and to introduce different foods to the young, because obviously it was a children's programme, to introduce different types of food to youngsters and to teach them how to cook it.
Yeah.
You know, so it was, I thought it was great. I loved it. I really loved it. I used to do a bit of singing on it. Fizz performed on it. It was a good programme, good fun. My two loves, music and cooking.
Well, it seems that way, but you know, I think you're an all-rounder. I think, apart from being a comedian, which wouldn't kind of fit with you, I think that everything that you've touched so far, and to what I've read about you, what I've learnt about you, what I've watched over the years, I think you're not frightened to turn your hand to anything. Would that be?
No, that's the beauty of it. I
Yeah.
mean, I love a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm competitive, but not so much that I have to win. I'm a very good loser.
Yeah.
So I like being in, you know, doing competition and stuff. I love sport. I always loved sport. If I hadn't been a singer, I'd like to have won an Olympic gold medal. That was my other ambition.
For what?
I'm still hoping to achieve that one. So.
For what? For what? What for? What sport?
Running.
Oh, okay.
I used to love running. Yeah. So I mean, for me, how lucky am I, because I get opportunities. Like, for instance, you said I was on the telly tonight doing that camping programme. That was a joy. We had such fun. And Dancing on Ice this time last year, I thought that, because it was a challenge for me, because I hadn't properly, I'd skated like anyone has when you're hanging onto the side of the wall, that kind of thing. But I thought, I'm going to love this. It's going to be brilliant. And as it happened, I hated it.
Well, both of these things I'm going to talk to you about shortly, because I've got some questions regarding those. So I'm just going to nip back now. You know, we've talked about, obviously, you know, your early career and of course Bucks Fizz. So my next question, of course, is kind of catapulting from when you won, and of course our last UK win, I think, was Katrina and the Waves.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to ask the Queen, and you are the Queen. Your words, everybody are now going to put their ears up to their radio. What the hell is going on now with Eurovision? What's going on?
Well, it's last year, I think it made it blatantly clear what the rest of Europe think of us. Because with the Suri was great, and also with the fact that guy jumped up on the stage and took a microphone, and yet she still carried on singing. You know, everyone must have thought, oh wow, that's amazing. We're going to vote for her.
Yes,
but
I thought that.
They did when the juries voted. We were on the left-hand side of the board.
Yes.
When it went to the people's vote, we shot all the way down to the bottom of the right-hand side. So that tells you that the general public of the rest of Europe, certainly the voting Eurovision public,
yes,
don't like us.
So do you think? So do you think then? Do you think, Miss Cheryl Baker, it's time for us to pack up and leave?
No, absolutely not. I love it.
Why? Why do you think we should stay? I mean, why do you think we should stay, as you've just said, and what everybody thinks, of course, whether it's to do with Brexit, issues with us getting out of Europe, whatever the case. Why do you think that we should? Why is it important we still throw our hat in the ring at Eurovision?
I think it's important. I think it would be silly to leave, because it's the biggest, most fantastic music extravaganza in the world. There is nothing bigger, nothing better, and it happens once a year, and the rest of the world watch. Everybody watch. Well, I mean, look at Australia.
Yeah.
Australia are actually part of it now because they love it. America watches it. China watches it. It's watched by everyone in the world, by hundreds of millions of people. Why would you want to pull out? I think it's fantastic that we're a part of it.
Okay. Would you?
Yeah, the voting gets a bit silly, but by that time, unless you're really involved and unless you're really absolutely desperate for Britain to win, which most of the rest of the world don't really care probably, but then that's when it's just a bit of television history. That's all it is. But we take it too much to heart.
Would you? Let's just kind of explore this. Would you throw yourself back in the ring if you could?
That'd be daft. Not on my age.
Come on, of course.
No.
What are you on about your age? What are you talking about,
of
your
course
age?
not. Absolutely not. That would be so wrong. No.
Have they ever done a Eurovision Champions of Champions yet?
Yeah, they have. They haven't. They didn't do it as a competition.
Oh,
They've
why?
done it a few times actually. They've just had shows with as many of the Eurovision winners as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And that's great fun. They're really good fun. We did one a couple of years ago actually in where were we? In Sweden, I think, when Sweden won with Heroes. You know, what's his name?
Oh, you've got me.
Someone will ring in and tell us his name.
Somebody
I know
tell
it's
us
four
who that
letters,
is.
like Mars or Lars or I can't remember.
Somebody
anyway,
tell us who it is,
yeah.
please.
He's actually presenting Eurovision You Decide next week. He's presenting it, when we choose our song for the Eurovision.
Okay, so next question, of course, if you don't mind answering
And we are
this.
going to be appearing on it, by the way.
Brilliant, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Little sources there on that. Who would you, out of everybody that's on the planet now, the people that you listen to, if somebody comes here and says, right, Cheryl, we've had enough of this, we want you to pick our Eurovision entry, and you can pick from anybody you like that's currently, available in the charts, who would you throw in there?
I think I would put in. See, the thing is that the rest of Europe like this sort of electronic and big and flash, and they like all that stuff. I think so. I would probably go with Little Mix or something. I'd put in. I think a group is good, and I think it needs to be someone who's with a big. Pop song, almost an anthemic pop song. So I'd like someone like Little Mix to do it.
Well, Martin in Ludlow, he definitely would win. If he could appear, he would win. But we're talking about in, current tense, not past it. Elvis Presley, that would be a neat trick. Because he's not here. So that would be great. Thanks very much for that. What about Adele and Kylie Minogue also being pinged in there?
Unfortunately, dare I say this, I would think that Kylie's too old for it as well. I know that it's a very pink programme, the Eurovision. I understand that. So perhaps Kylie would be right, but Bux's wouldn't be right. We made some bad mistakes, when we put Engelbert Humperdinck. Whose idea was that?
Oh, tell me about it.
And I felt embarrassed for him. He was an aging man.
Yeah.
Who had great success with his past, and he can easily fill any Las Vegas hotel and make millions of pounds.
Of course.
He didn't need the humiliation of coming last in the Eurovision Song Contest.
This is why I love live radio, because we have chat rooms here, Cheryl, and somebody's just put Mans Zelmerlo.
That's it. I knew it was 4 letters. Mans. That's it. Mans Zelmer. Yeah.
Man, see,
he was great. He was very good.
Thank you again, Chris Ashford. Have you got the Eurovision book open tonight? Is that what's going on there? But thank you very much indeed for that. So, of course, you think Eurovision should continue in its current format? Don't we actually pay money towards it?
Yeah, we do. There are 5 countries that pay towards it, and funnily enough, they're all old Europe. I think France, Germany. I can't remember really who pays into it. But yes, we are one of the 5 people who pay into it. I think that's another issue, talking about the voting.
Yeah. I
think new and old Europe, if you've got older people voting, they still remember the Iron Curtain, and we were the enemy. Yeah. And so I do think, even though the curtain's been down now for decades, I think that older people still look on us and America as the enemy.
Yeah.
So and they will never vote for us because of that. That's just my thoughts on that.
Before we move forward, somebody's suggesting Tom Jones. Couldn't see that myself.
That would be the same as Engelbert Humperdinck. The thing is, we've put in some great songs and some great singers. In the last few days, last few years, I think we've had the 2 lads who did it a couple of years ago. They had a really good song. They sang it fantastic, and yet they still came in the bottom 5. So I just think that it doesn't matter who we put in it. If we put in Ed Sheeran, I still don't think we would win.
So we've got things to talk about regarding your little accent with your ankles. We're going to talk about Dancing on Ice. We're going to talk about this fabulous programme. And I'm telling you guys, when we talk about this fabulous programme, it's available on Catch Up. You must take a look at this, which we're going to talk about very soon. And I am going to touch a little bit more, if you don't mind, on Bucks Fizz. We're just going to dip in and out of that. But what we're going to do now, if it's okay with you, Cheryl, we'll take a little bit of a break. Don't forget, of course, all your emails. We're not accepting any or more emails tonight. There's a couple of crackers that I'm going to ask Cheryl in a short while. Cheryl, we're going to play a bit of Queen, I think.
Oh, lovely.
So we're going to play a bit of Queen. We'll be back. Cheryl Baker, a national institution and royalty, is on the show, and we'll be back with more very soon. Stay there.
Chris Phillips is live now into the weekend with Flashback Friday. Flashback Friday on the UK's #1 station, secondcityradio.net, and on the Second City Radio app for Android and iOS.
And we now go back to the Queen of the UK. Cheryl Baker's back. You are the Queen, Cheryl.
Well, I think Queen Elizabeth might have something to say about that.
No, you're beautiful.
Maybe I'm the Queen of UK Eurovision. Maybe that.
No, we just adore you. It's like Anton Deck, and of course, this is going to sound very weird, but it's popped into my head. David Dickinson. I like David Dickinson. He's a national treasure. Yeah, I like David Dickinson. He's a great guy. Don't know why I brought him in, but there it is. It's fantastic to have you on the show tonight. Everybody's going ballistic tonight for a bit of Bucks Fizz, but of course mainly yourself. I just want to talk a little bit before we had a break. We were talking about all the fantastic things that went on with Bucks Fizz. Now, obviously, just to make it clear, now you're in the band The Fizz.
Yes.
And I want you to, without delving too deep, because I'm not expecting you to do that. Where did it all go wrong? What happened?
Well, I left Bucks Fizz in December 1993.
Right.
And I was replaced. At that time, we'd been working for 4 years. We'd been working as three, just me, Mike, and Bobby. Yeah. Bobby G.
Yes.
And I left because I was pregnant.
Okay.
And so it was the 11th of December, the exact date. And so when I left, they replaced me with two new girls. So it went back to being a four-piece band.
Okay.
One of the girls was called Heidi, and she eventually married Bobby G.
Okay.
In the meantime, Bobby and Mike weren't getting on at all well. To be perfectly honest, I think Bobby was a bit of a bully with Mike. Because it was very easy at that time to bully Mike because he was we'd had the coach crash and he had brain damage, so he was very insecure and he was very quiet, and it was easy to poke fun at him.
Right.
But he hated it, and he used to ring me in tears and say, I can't stand it. And I said to him, Mike, just walk away, leave the group, you don't need it, walk away.
Yeah.
So he did eventually walk away, and he was replaced. Bobby G rang David Van Day and asked him to replace Mike Nolan. Yeah. That was like oil and water. David Van Day and Bobby G didn't work well at all, so after a period of time, David himself left and rang Mike Nolan and said, let's start our own Bucks Fizz, which they did. And I think probably, I would imagine anyway, Bobby G thought this was, now there were two Bucks Fizzes going out.
Yes.
So, I guess it was quite canny really, of Bobby and his wife.
Yes.
They registered the trademark.
Right.
They registered the trademark Bucks Fizz, and it's actually in his wife's name, Heidi.
Oh.
She owns the trademark Bucks Fizz.
Right.
So we're not allowed to use it. So even though we got back together again in 2004,
yeah.
At that time we were called the original Bucks Fizz.
Yes.
And then we changed it to formerly of Bucks Fizz, and Jay came back into the group, which we hadn't worked with Jay for 25 years. So now we had Jay, me, and Mike. And every time, well, many times anyway, when we did gigs,
yes,
the owner of the venue would receive a copy of the trademark saying, you can't use this band, they're passing off as Bucks Fizz, and we own the trademark. It was all a bit ugly, to be honest.
Yeah, I can
because
sense that.
Often the proprietors would advertise us as Bucks Fizz, even though we told them they couldn't.
Yes.
They would still advertise us as Bucks Fizz because everybody knew who we were, and the fact that in their hearts we were Bucks Fizz. So they would advertise, and that's when they would get all these copies of the trademark. And it was a bit, I think it was a bit sour, really. I was really disappointed because, you know, we all needed each other, the four of us, and so to smack us in the face so many times. And in the end, we started working with Mike Stock from Stockhaken and Waterman, and he said, why don't you call yourself the Fizz? Because all the fans called us Fizz. And I've been saying to you tonight, when Fizz did that, and it's because everyone seemed to do that, they shortened it to Fizz. So I rang the trademarks people and I said, is this an infringement on the Bucks Fizz copyright or trademark? And it wasn't.
Right.
So, however, I'm sure Bobby and his wife made sure it wasn't. I'm sure they would have rung up and checked it out, and I bet they were a bit upset, really, when they discovered that it wasn't an infringement.
If I can stop you there just for a second, because we've got people pinging through here now saying, well, there's very, very little sympathy for Bobby G, but that's coming through. People are entitled to their opinion. And something I remember, you were on something a while ago with David Van Day, and it seemed to me that you didn't seem much of a fan anyway of David Van Day.
No, well, David Van Day ripped Mike Nolan off.
Yes,
the time that
exactly.
Mike worked with David, he ripped him off, and Mike took him to court.
Yes.
And won.
Yes.
But David made himself bankrupt, and so Mike had to sell his flat. He had to sell his home, which was in the west part of London. So it was a beautiful flat he had. He had to sell it because he couldn't afford to keep it, and so therefore, I despise David Van Day because he's a crook.
No, well, I absolutely agree with you. And I was watching a TV program. It's just come back to me, and I remember you being on the program when David Van Day was on, and you just didn't want to acknowledge that he was there.
I was shocked when I saw him.
Yes.
And I saw all the other celebrities, and I said hello to all of the celebrities other than David Van Day.
Well, see, this is why I love this radio station. So now, while we're talking, of course, I'd already told Cheryl off air that we had wonderful Mike Nolan on the show. He was on with me. And, of course, all those that are fans of Mike Nolan, because he's a lovely guy, he's on Facebook Live tomorrow from 12:30 until 1 o'clock. See, I get all this information. I don't have to do anything, Cheryl. So if you fancy catching up with Mike Nolan, of course, on his Facebook, 12:30 till 1 tomorrow, go and have a look at him. He's a lovely man. Lovely, lovely man. So we move forward because it's all about you tonight, and quite rightly so. So there's various things that you've done, of course. I want to talk a little bit about the programme. I'll let you explain to the audience. You was in this programme where you were fired out of some kind of cannon or something, and didn't you have a problem with your ankles directly after? What was that?
Oh, I wasn't fired out of a cannon. It was what they called it. Oh, God, I wasn't that on my brain tonight.
Don't worry.
It was a...
You had to jump off something, basically.
Parachute.
Parachute, okay.
So I couldn't think of the word parachute.
See,
cannon.
Cannon.
I did it. It was a competition. It was a programme called Drop the Celebrity.
Okay.
And I can't remember how many celebrities there were, perhaps 8.
Okay.
And each of them, we all had to answer questions, and the general public had to respond, and the person who got the least responses, or the least positive responses, had to do the parachute jump. And in the final two were me and Linda Lusardi.
Oh.
And in the end, the public voted for me to stay and for Linda to jump. So I won. I won the competition,
wow,
which was amazing, and I won a lot of money from a charity at that time.
Brilliant.
But they said, we will double the money, or we'll give you half as much again, if you jump. And so I said, well, then I have to jump. It's a small charity, it needs money, so I have to jump. And I remember thinking, as I jumped out, or I was tandem, so you know I had someone behind me. But even so, as we came out of it, it was a Hurricane aircraft.
Right.
And as we leapt into the unknown, I thought, what am I doing? I've got children. What am I doing? So when we were talking about earlier about taking risks and doing things, that was one of the things that I'd always wanted to do. But actually, when I did it, I thought, ridiculous, what a stupid thing to do. You've got young children and you're jumping out of a plane and putting your life at risk for the sake of a bit of silk above you, you know. And as we came into land, of course, when you're being filmed, it looks like you're coming down like a feather, you know, but you're not. Yeah. You're coming down at a rate of knots. And I was terrified that I was going to hurt my spine, because I hurt my spine when we had our coach crash, and I was terrified I was going to do it again. because he said, come in and land on your bum and slide along on your bum. And I thought the pressure on my spine was going to be too terrific. So instead of landing on my bum, I tried to run. As we came in, I tried to run, and my ankle just twisted underneath me and broke. That was that. My fault.
But at the end of the day, the fact that you did it deserves a round of applause, but you're thinking about the charity and the money you made for that. So was it worth it at the end of the day?
It was worth it for the charity.
Yes, I thought that.
I think it was 10 grand. I won 10 grand and they gave me another 5. So 15 grand to the charity, which was an awful lot of money for that particular. As I say, the small charities, amounts like that are phenomenal, you know. So, but for me, I couldn't work then for months because I couldn't walk. Or actually, it's not true. I did work, but I worked with my leg in plaster and in a wheelchair.
See,
so,
that's
and even it was I can't remember when it was. It was perhaps May or June. I can't remember. It might have been earlier than that.
Yeah.
And I had panto that year. I was doing pantomime.
Okay.
And by the time I did the panto, my legs went up, my ankle, when I came off stage, because by that time, obviously, I could wear shoes or boots. I think I was Dick Whittington or something.
Yeah.
So I was wearing boots. But I would come off stage and my ankle was really swollen. So it takes forever for a break like that to heal properly.
But you got through it again. That's another thing that you got through. And then, very happily, I can say not many people did get this, but you also was a subject of a This Is Your Life.
Yeah, 1997 that was.
So how was that? Being you know, kind of...
It was amazing because, I don't know, there might be some of your listeners who don't remember This Is Your Life, but it was such a major programme, and to be invited on it, to be actually the person that the focus of the programme was like a real accolade. You really felt like you'd made it in show business if you were one of the people invited onto This Is Your Life. And my dad, it was his favourite programme, and he used to watch it, and he always used to cry. But, you know, surreptitiously, he would lift his glasses and wipe his eyes without us seeing him, you know. And so I remember when they did this to me, my first thought was, oh, my dad must be so proud. And they were still alive at that time, my mum and dad, but he passed away 2 years later, actually. So it was a major thing for me, not just because it was a recognition that I'd been around for a long time at that time, but it was because of my parents. It was the pride they must have felt was made me feel absolutely wonderful.
I think, like you said, This Is Your Life, for those that don't know, if you were on that programme, you were somebody. And you know, I remember the days of Michael Aspel. In fact, on YouTube now, you can see This Is Your Life way back when, and Laurel and Hardy were on one.
Really?
Yeah, it's in black and white,
Cheryl. I
Cheryl.
must see their film. I want to see the new film.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it has been going for decades. I mean, it was in black and white when it started, wasn't it? So.
Well, this is the thing. People don't realise just how much, you know, how much that you're loved. Because of course, to get something like that, This Is Your Life, it was the programme where we were teased for the first couple of minutes every week on who it was going to be. And of course, you being on there and having all these friends and people flying in to see you. Do you have like drinks after that? Did you kind of go in a room and have something to eat and drinks?
Yeah, they had a room, and drinks and I think snacks, and you've got all your friends and family there. It's lovely. It's a party that you didn't expect to go to, and they don't tell you anything. And also, I was told that if I'd found out, they would have pulled the plug on it. They wouldn't have done it. So I'm so grateful that nobody let the cat out of the bag, so I never ever knew.
No.
So literally, I was surprised. I went to a party. Actually, it was the end of series party for Record Breakers.
Okay.
And I turned up, and it was Michael Aspel, and he said, "Cheryl Baker, this is your life." And I went, oh! And I was whisked into a car and taken to Teddington, where they had the studios there.
Yeah.
And I said it was Sue, that was the producer. I remember, Sue Green, I think her name was.
Okay.
And I said, when did you tell my husband? And she said, who's your husband? And I went, oh, well, when did they know? And she went, I don't know what you're talking about. And she would not let anything out, so that everything that happened on the programme was a shock to me. She didn't let anything out at all. And I think that was amazing. She hid me. I was hidden from everyone, you know. And so the whole thing was like, you know, have you seen that new program, Michael McIntyre's Big Night Out?
Yes, I've seen it.
Where they surprise someone. And it was like that. It was suddenly, you know, it was just fantastic. And when I saw Michael Aspel with the book, I went, oh, amazing.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. you just deserve things like that. But now, I want you to explain this to me, because I don't know where I sit with this. You revealed, and I think I'm going back to about 2009-10, that you were invited or asked to appear on Celebrity Big Brother when it was good, and you turned it down. Why did you turn that down? Why?
Oh, because I don't like it. I think it's they try and bring out the worst in people, and also I'm a bit of a shop steward. You know, I like people. I like things to be fair, and so if I thought that someone was not being treated very well, I would stand up for them, and I could see them editing it to make it sound like I was being a pushy bird. You know, so I think they make you do silly things.
Is this because you've watched people that you know on the programme yourself, and you've watched them kind of crack?
I watched it originally. I don't watch it. I haven't watched it since. I watched it in the Jade Goody days, and I remember coming home from a gig.
Yes.
And putting the telly on. It was 2:00 in the morning. I was wide awake because I'd just been gigging. I'd been driving home.
Right.
I put the telly on, and I saw Jade Goody. She was sitting on a bed, sunbed,
yes,
by the pool. And
yes.
she was there was no one else there, just her, and she was just looking out. And I was watching her, and I thought, what are you doing? The realisation that I was watching someone just sitting, I thought, this is ridiculous. And I vowed then never to watch it again. But it's just when you see some of the silly things that they get them to do, and also when they wind them up,
yes,
and they like it when they're sort of anti, you know, when they like to see arguments going on. The Jim Davidson and Linda Nolan thing really upset me, because I know them both. I know Linda very well, and I just thought it was awful. I hated it. I hated the way that it was manipulated like that.
Well, you probably did the right thing. You know, you know yourself whether something's right or wrong. So you did turn that down. Now here's a few things that you have done, Miss Cheryl Baker. You've featured in Footloose, playing Vymore back in 2006. What was that like, being on stage doing
great.
that?
I still keep in touch with the cast. I did it for a year. I did 3 months on tour and 9 months in the West End.
Okay.
And it was amazing. It was the best show. I loved it, and I loved all my kids, all the dancers and that. And Steve McGann, who's the doctor in Call the Midwife.
Yes.
He played my husband, and we had such a laugh. I mean, I laughed sometimes. I laughed until I wet myself, and I actually thought at one time, I need to go and see a doctor because I think I've got an incontinence problem. But it was because he used to make me laugh until I wet myself. And it was only when I finished working on that show that I realised I didn't have a problem at all.
Well, we need to talk about now, and this one is one of the surprise packages of Cheryl Baker. You were featured on Pop Star to Opera Star with Joan McElderry. Now, Pop Star to Opera Star, what was all that about, and why did you get into that?
Well, my manager said they're looking for artists to audition for Pop Star to Opera Star, and I went, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like that. Again, you know, it was a challenge for me. I thought that was, you know, I love singing, and it was a form of singing that I'd never done before. So I went along and I auditioned, and she said, okay, sing this song for me in an operatic voice. And I did what I thought was an operatic voice. And she said to me, now sing it again as if you're taking the mickey out of an opera singer. And so I did it again, really exaggerating everything. And she said, that's it. That's what you've got to do. And she wrote on my audition piece, you must have her. So yes, you must have her. So that's how I got the job. And I loved it. And as you say, Joe won, and I came second.
Yes, I know you did, because I wrote that down before you came on tonight. But you should have won. You should have won that. Should have won.
No, I was never going to win. Joe was and is so popular. He's got the most amazing voice.
Yeah.
Every week Joe was getting 70% of the vote, and the rest of the 30% was going to all the other artists.
Well, I'd like to say rerun that today, and it wouldn't come out the same. It would be 70, 80% for yourself and 20 with Joe.
No, that's just because you love me. That's the only reason.
Oh, all right, all right, you've got me. So what? But you should have won. Now, we're talking, you've done different things, of course, in your build-up to what we're going to talk about next, Dancing on Ice, because I know you said earlier you didn't really like it. However, you've done all sorts of... You've even been on Celebrity Mastermind as well. So, what was your subject?
Rubbish, actually.
What was your subject?
James Taylor, who I love.
Really?
When they said choose your subject, I thought, what's going on? And James, I mean, I adore his music, but I didn't know enough about him.
Right.
So I bought a book, and I read all his books and about his home life and everything. But they asked me questions. It's like people keep tweeting, oh, get Cheryl Baker on The Chase, get Cheryl Baker on Pointless, get Cheryl Baker on what's that, Tipping Point, all these quick fire question and answer programs. And the trouble is, I'm not very good on quick fire. I need a bit of time.
Yeah.
And so I was absolutely useless on Mastermind. And because you know the answer, like me trying to find the word for parachute, you know, and like it wouldn't come to me. You know the answer, but it won't come to you that quick. And so, I came third on Mastermind.
Do you know?
Lovely to do it though. I really enjoyed it.
Do you know what I said last year about you on the radio? I said, and I'll stand by what I say, it's only a matter of time before we see you on a judging panel, maybe Britain's Got Talent, something like that. I could see you doing that.
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do any judging panel, but it will never happen.
Yes, it will. We start the campaign tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Send your emails in now. Let's fire them off to every TV channel. You're not bothered if it's Australia or Canada or anything like that, Cheryl? Anywhere will do?
I don't mind. Anywhere will do.
If the check's good and you pay for the flight, she's on her way.
You know what? Even with this Eurovision, You Decide.
Yes.
If I'm absolutely honest, I did wonder why they asked. I can't think of her name now, but it was Sue Perkins and who used to present Bake Off.
Yes, I know who you're on about. Yes,
I did wonder why they didn't ask someone who had been involved with Eurovision.
Exactly.
Not necessarily me. Maybe Katrina.
Exactly.
Someone from Brotherhood of Man. Lulu. Sandy Shaw. Why didn't they ask someone who'd actually done the Eurovision Song Contest?
Exactly.
Because it's being presented by, as we know, as we just found out, whatever his name is, Mats, is it? From Sweden. He's doing it. Mags? I can't remember. Anyway, he's doing it. So why didn't they have the equivalent from the UK?
It would be like,
I find that very strange.
It would be like Keith Lemon presenting the 6 o'clock news. It just wouldn't work, would it? Wouldn't work. You should have been picked for that. You should have been picked.
Similar. I can see the similarity there. It's not quite the same, but yeah.
We talk about Dancing on Ice. Now, this is something else, of course, because obviously on previous conversation, your ankles will be very, very, kind of took that hit and slightly weaker. I've done my ankle as well. I know I'll get pain with that sometimes. So then what does Cheryl Baker do? I've got a good idea. Let's get on the ice.
I thought it was... When I went for the audition, which I did, I had to go for a trial.
Yeah.
And I trialled with, actually, a guy, an American guy, who was adorable. And he ended up being one of the main coaches, so we saw an awful lot of him. And he was great. He took me on the ice and he held me and he said, this is what I want you to do. And just soft knees is so important. Soft knees. I can't tell you. I would be a millionaire if I told you how many times they said to me, soft knees. But anyway, he took me around the ice, and it was great, and I loved it. He was holding me, you see. He never let me go.
Wow. And
he was going, now I want you to do this, and cross your leg, and he was telling me things, and I was happy. I mean, really, I was smiling the whole way through. I thought, this is amazing. Anyway, 6 months later, they told me that I'd got it. So it took months. I was one of the first ones that they saw, and they had loads of other people to see. And 6 months later, I was told I had the job.
Wow.
And that's when I started training. And I was training at first with a young girl in Gillingham in Kent, where I started my training, and she was teaching me the basics. And I took some nasty falls when I was with her.
Yeah.
That really hurt.
Yeah.
And then I started training with my partner, the magnificent Dan Whiston, who I adore.
Yes.
But again, any time I fell, it hurt so much, and I was afraid then, and I was so afraid of not my ankle, but my back, because I broke 3 vertebrae in my spine when we had a coach crash.
Yeah.
I was terrified of hurting my back.
Yeah.
And so that I just wouldn't let go of his hand, and I was like it throughout the whole competition. I wouldn't let go of him.
That's natural.
And I grew to hate it. I used to see the little brown sign with the skate on it, telling me that I was near the rink, when I was driving, and I detested that sign, and it used to make my heart sink into my stomach whenever I saw the sign, and I hated putting the skates on. I hated it, and it was everything about it. I even signed up to do the tour, so I did the tour, which was only 3 weeks.
Yes.
And I hated it. When I was with Dan, and I felt secure with Dan, I was fine. But there were times when I had to let go, or I don't know what, or I had a bit of a wobble on,
Yeah.
But and that's when I used to say, just get me off the ice, get me off the ice. And so as much as I'm glad I did it, because I met one of the most important, fabulous men in my life, which was Dan Whiston.
Yes.
And he'll be a friend for life now.
Yes.
But the actual experience of skating, I hated.
So how far did you go in the competition, to remind people?
Week 5. So if I'd been in it now,
yes,
this forthcoming Sunday would have been my last week.
Well, that's fantastic. Nobody ever wants to be our person. Just on the basis of that, because obviously you probably like everybody else, you enjoy watching it, just not taking part in it. What is your feeling on Gemma Collins? Let's just have your opinion on that, Gemma Collins. What do you think of Gemma Collins?
Well, the thing is, Gemma Collins, we've made the monster who is Gemma Collins.
Yes.
I'm not calling her a monster, you know what I mean. We have put her on this pedestal that she believes she deserves to be on.
Yes.
And so you can't blame her for that. It's not her fault.
Right.
We've made this star who totally believes that she is a star.
Right.
And of course she's a reality. I don't think with reality they're not just. It's not real, because they do get rough scripts. They have to have some kind of storyline, because otherwise it'd be deadly boring. So she is, if you like, an actress. But she does milk it. We all know that. And that's how she's made her name, and she knows it. And she also probably knows that her career is not going to be extremely long.
No.
So she's got to make whatever she can now.
But
I didn't think she'd even make show 1. So I honestly am amazed and pleased and thrilled, especially because her partner's so fabulous, that she's still in it.
Well, there's a difference of opinion. I mean, my personal opinion, she's famous for being famous and nothing more. But secondly...
Well, that's true. She's only famous because we've made her famous.
Yeah, but then...
Because we loved, the ridiculousness of it all. That's what it's all about now with reality telly.
So, do you think that ITV will be rubbing their hands together, because it's been on the Frontline News, this issue with Jason Garner? Will they be rubbing their hands together, getting more viewers?
Absolutely.
Or yeah, you think so?
And everyone will be watching. I mean, that piece of footage with Gemma Collins falling flat on her face must have been the most watched piece of video, or on YouTube or on any other format, for the week, or maybe for the year so far.
Yeah.
So she is gold. She is gold.
So
and everyone's going to be watching on Sunday, wondering if she's going to turn up, if what's going to happen. I mean, all the pictures of her in the paper, with the wheelchair and everything.
Yeah.
We're all thinking, oh, come on, for goodness sake. But we're all interested in it.
Yeah.
We want to know what's next. So, like I said earlier, we've made the monster.
Well, I can promise you I don't want to know what happens next. I just picked this up from, the newspapers, but I'm not a fan in any way, shape or form. And very soon, when we get down to the real skating, she'll be out. I want to talk to you now, young lady, about your camping. Now, I've been watching all sorts of stuff on Channel 5. I've had 5 celebs do different things. And then up come camping. And guess who's on again? The golden lady herself, Cheryl Baker. You and camping. Did it work? Didn't it work? Tell us about it.
Oh, no, it worked. It was fabulous. I loved it. I mean, not so much the camping. The whole thing. It's not reality.
Right.
The director had another name for it, and I can't remember what she called it. But it's like contrived reality.
Right.
Because they put you in a position, but they have to get you there. Because it's not like we all got together, the 5 of us, just because we're mates. They didn't. We were all put together,
Right.
and then we're given cars, and we're told where to go.
Right.
And then we're told that we're staying, this is your tent tonight. So they contrived the whole thing,
Right.
and then just filmed us getting on with it. But we did get on with it, and we did get on really well. It was me, Michelle Collins, Bobby Davro, Stephen Bailey, who not enough people know yet because he's a dream and he's a very funny man.
Yes.
And the first part of the series was with Joe Swash.
It was.
And the second part was with Tim Vincent.
Yes.
And both of those guys were great. So we had we had such a laugh. We've been in touch tonight even, we've been texting each other saying, oh, did you see that? Oh, about when Bobby ran off naked, and so, which he did.
I've been watching every episode, and of course I haven't seen, tonight's was broadcast at 8 o'clock when I started my radio show, and I thought, well, how can I watch that? And I couldn't do both. I can't multitask. I'm a man. But it seemed that you got on very well with Michelle Collins. I just saw a bit of chemistry there.
Yeah, we did go on really well. I'll be honest though, there was the chemistry with all of us. We all got on so well. We've got together since then. She opened in not Gemma, what am I saying? Michelle opened in a play a couple of nights ago, and we're all hoping to go and see her there.
Yeah.
And when she finishes, we'll all get together again. It's a bit like Footloose. I still see the guys from Footloose. When I did Happy Days, I still see them, and Dancing on Ice. I will go and see Dancing on Ice, and I'll definitely see Dan Whiston for the rest of my life. And so it's lovely that throughout your career, there, often you meet people and you never see them again, which is a shame. But sometimes you meet special people and you're going to keep in contact.
No, of course.
This program was one of those programs where we got on so well that we want to stay in contact.
Well, I hope so, because that's how it came across on the program. It came across that way. It didn't look false.
No, it wasn't false. There wasn't anything false about it. I think you can tell.
Yes.
You can tell when there's something not quite right.
Yeah.
Within a conversation or something. But we just laughed a lot, and there were tears as well. There was quite poignant moments. They didn't show everything, and so there was a lot of emotion because for that 3 weeks that we did this program, which it took to make this program, we were a family for 3 weeks. We didn't have our own friends and family around us. We were just us five, and it worked really well.
I think it's just amazing. There's a few people I want you to say hello to shortly, but before we do, two things I need to cover. First of all, you do a lot for charity, and there's a certain charity that you're connected with. Do you want to give any information about, can people donate to this charity?
Well, I'm doing a lot of different stuff for different charities, but the main one that I'm involved with now is called Abigail's Footsteps. Okay. And it's for people who have had stillborn babies or babies that have died shortly after birth, and it's to supply things to give them memories, like cameras and cold cots, refrigerated cots where the baby can stay for days, because otherwise they would just take them away very quickly, and even bereavement suites. Yeah. Because when I was 20 weeks pregnant, I nearly lost my children, and they put me in a maternity ward, and I was absolutely in fear of losing my twins. Of course. And yet I was in a ward with women saying, "Oh, what's exciting! Any minute, I'm getting the contractions." And it was, and I could hear babies crying in the next ward where the newborn babies had been born, and yet I was fearful that I was going to lose mine. And there's, every hospital should have a quiet area where, people who maybe are going to lose their baby, where they can go, or if they have lost their baby, a bereavement suite where they can sit and contemplate and have pictures and things like that. So that's one of the charities that I support it, not because I did lose any of my babies. Fortunately, they were fine, but I support it because they work so hard and they make such a difference. And I've seen it in action. I've seen how successful it's been at alleviating people's grief. Yeah. So that's why I support that one. But there's also, I support in particular a children's hospice near where I live. So. No child should be in a hospice.
Give them a mention, by all means. Give them a mention.
Yeah, they're called Demelza Hospice Care for Children, so I support them. And funnily enough, it's called Demelza because it was a young woman who worked in a hospice for children in the Birmingham area.
Yes.
And sadly, she died. I can't remember if she was in an accident or if she died of something, but she died. And her parents, who lived in Kent, built this children's hospice in her name, and they built a children's hospice because they knew that was something that she was so passionate about. And now it's hugely successful, you know. So she would, if she was alive, she would be incredibly proud of her parents for doing that.
Well, there's
two. So yeah, they're my two main ones, I suppose now. But I do a lot of other stuff.
So if you get
I'm running a half marathon soon. That's for Abigail's Footsteps.
Okay. So when's that happening?
On the 24th of March.
Okay. If you can let me know about a week before, we'll give you a bit of a big up on that.
That would be lovely.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
Of course. So
I do forget these things, though. You know.
I will remind you.
An airhead in that respect.
I will remind you when it comes to stuff
that
like that.
That would be great. Thank you.
I can DM you.
Diary.
There's two more things left for us to do tonight. I've got to say, by the way, Cheryl, thanks for staying with me for so long. We've had a wonderful chat tonight. I want to ask you, what's next for Cheryl Baker? What are you going to do next? What's going to go on?
Well, we're going in the studio very shortly to finish an album that we started last year.
Okay.
So with Mike Stock, that'll be soon.
Yep.
Gigging, lots of gigs.
Yes.
Biz gigs and cruises. I do a lot of cruises. I do my own sort of one-woman show on cruise ships.
Okay.
The one ship in particular is P&O Britannia.
Okay.
I work on that, so and that's lovely. It's like I take my husband Steve. He's my MD. Plays guitar for me.
Bless.
And I sing a bit, do a few stories, and it's like a working holiday. You know, in February we're flying out to the Caribbean for 5 nights. So only 5 nights, but even so, it's like I say, it's like a working holiday. So
when are you going to agree to come and do a radio show on this station? Because I can't rest until we get you on here. I mean, we've got Mike Holloway, we've got Sam Cam, we've got Gary Bushell. Surely at some point in the future you can give us an hour.
Yeah, I would love to. I've done a little bit of radio, not for ages though. I did a bit on Radio 2 years ago.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, anytime.
I've never heard of radio.
I might even let me do a guest spot one week, and if it works for you, I'll do it more regularly.
Absolutely, but I've never heard of Radio 2. Can't talk about that. Never heard of it. I've heard it's one of these BBC channels.
We won't talk about those. Yeah.
You got me coughing now. My sense of humour. Right. So, would you mind giving a shout out to a few people tonight that are desperate? Okay. So, do you want to say a big hello to Harold Phillips tonight? Harold Phillips, how are you? He's a big fan, Harold. He's been talking about you.
Thank you very much, Harold. Keep it up. Keep being a fan. We'll be here forever. My daughter said to me today, Mum, she said about when you die, which obviously isn't going to be for at least 100 years, and I went, obviously. So
you still look the same. I'm going to be around
for a while yet.
I said this to you the other day. You look the same. You don't age. It's like you're going to some kind of time capsule somewhere. Yeah. Can you also say hello to Andy Bruce?
Andy, hello. How are you? Nice to hear from you today.
We move over to Southern Australia. Can you say hello to Vahula? Now, I don't know exactly how to say it. It's spelled Voula, but it's Vahula.
Vahula, okay. Well, hello in South Australia. I've got a brother in Australia. He's in New South Wales. So, and I've got my daughter who's just come back from Australia. She went over there for a holiday. And Australia, I love. I could live in Australia. I adore it. So, thank you very much for listening tonight. Bahula.
Now, we have a legend who's sitting in the chat room. Do you remember Now, I'm going to attempt to sing this, and I'm going to embarrass myself, but do you remember a band called Bizarre Inc.? They had a hit. They had a hit with "Why Waste Your Time? You know you're going to be mine. You know you're going."
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, the lead singer of that, Angie Brown, is one of our presenters in the chat room. She's one of the station's presenters. Well, she says hello as well, Angie Brown.
Oh, hi, Angie.
And she's there because she's on after me doing dance classics at 11 o'clock.
Oh, brilliant!
Can you also say a big hello to Mandy P?
Mandy P, how are you? Nice to hear from you tonight.
Now, if I didn't do this one, I'd be shot tomorrow morning, because he plays your music regular, as I've told you on the show. Tony with a twist of lemon.
Tony with a twist of lemon. Thank you for playing our stuff. It's very kind of you. Thank you.
See, Tony, she loves me, but she likes you, Tony. So that's you're kind of there. Can you also say a big hello to Laura, who's listening in?
Laura, do I know you? It's lovely to hear from you. Hope you have a great rest of the evening.
And can you say hello to Maxine and Ray?
Maxine and Ray, how are you? Nice to hear your names.
And we have 3 more to go. Christopher Ashford.
Christopher Ashford, good to hear from you tonight.
Christopher Primetime Ashford, as they call him.
Oh, Primetime, of course.
He's Primetime on a Monday. Can you also say a big hello to Ruby and John Logan?
Hello, Ruby and John Logan.
And finally, because he deserves this one because he connected us, Sam Kane and Linda Lusardi.
Oh, Sam and Lynn, I love you both, absolutely and totally. Love you.
Well, it's been absolute amazeballs. We haven't even got a chance to go through any emails because I think we've kind of covered everything on the show tonight. And it's 13 minutes to 11. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. Is it really?
It is. It is.
Oh, it is, yeah. Blimey.
But you've been absolutely amazing on this show, and I will remind you about your charity stuff next month.
Yeah,
I think it's March the what were we saying? March the
24th.
24th. Yeah, I've got that down. I will remind you about that. And we'll give you a bit of a plug on here and see if we can get you some extra wonga. And of course, if you want a radio job, then speak to me and we'll get you on here.
Bless your heart. Thank you very much, Chris.
Cheryl Baker's The Fizz Show. That would be great, wouldn't it? If you just want to stay there for me just a second, Cheryl, we'll give her a virtual round of applause. We thank Cheryl Baker for being on the show. Don't forget, if you want to hear it again, it's available on Spotify. This is how quick we work. 11:05, Cheryl. It'll be there on Spotify.
Marvellous.
How good is that?
Marvellous.
We're going to play McFadden and Whitehead. Ain't no stopping us now. And we'll be back shortly. Toodaloo.
Chris Phillips is live now into the weekend with Flashback Friday. Flashback Friday on the UK's #1 station, secondcityradio.net, and on the Second City Radio app for Android and iOS.